Hello and welcome to The Long Couch. My name's Carl. I'm joined tonight by Mel.
Hey, question for you actually. Forget the audience now. I've never asked this while we do these podcasts. Do you sip on anything while we do this?
Mostly water, maybe sometimes Powerade Zero mixed berry.
Okay, just a completely irrelevant question. I just wanted to feel less alone, and now I do. So I appreciate that.
You may even see some stray Powerade Zero bottles next to me
Oh,
in frame.
nice. See, I keep all my bottles just under where my camera reaches.
Mm.
So the background of my camera looks like that I maintain at least a somewhat decent and pristine working environment. But just outside of the perimeter that my camera captures, it's a fucking mess.
I believe it.
Hey, why? Why do you believe that?
And on tonight's episode, we will be discussing adaptations that missed the point.
Woo!
That's right, we're talking about my favorite thing. It's adaptations.
This is your favorite thing?
No, this is my least favorite thing.
Wow, I fell for it. I really took that bait. Fuck.
Well, you know how I feel about when things get adapted and then the fan base cries and pees their pants because it's not exactly the same as the thing they remember.
I do feel like on multiple occasions I've heard you air out your grievances on that specific thing. So,
but on tonight's episode, we're not just going to say, this adaptation sucks and this one is good and yada, yada, yada. We're going to specifically focus in on a certain specific element that was kind of lost in translation.
Oh, okay. So not the whole thing as a whole, just like this specific facet of the adaptation was maybe a little off the mark.
That's right. I think that will keep us focused, because we could go on forever about how different these adaptations are, how one's better or worse, or so on.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it would kind of be a difficult argument to make to say, like every element, like the entire movie as a whole, because with an adaptation is you're taking most of the time you're taking something and you're reformatting it for a different medium. So like of course things are going to change. It's not going to be a one-to-one thing. Like for example, some things that might work in a book, some narrative devices might work better, might work differently in a movie. So I feel like it's a lot easier to focus on just like one narrative thing that just is so fucking weird rather than the entirety of a whole. Because we could just keep going on and on and on about so many adaptations that in that context would not fucking hit the mark at all.
Right. I mean, trying to adapt a 300-page novel into like a 90-minute movie, of course a lot of things are going to be left on the cutting room floor.
It doesn't always translate. Like it's nowhere close to the same thing. And that's honestly, I was going to say that's why I appreciate how the new Percy Jackson show was like the first season was just the book. That way it didn't feel as rushed as the movie did, and they could really like take time to meditate on the characters and the plot and not feel rushed. I was going to use that as an example because it is good they did an entire season rather than a movie. I didn't like that show, so maybe it's not the best example.
Okay, well let's start with the ending. The ending of I Am Legend from 2007. Okay. The original I Am Legend is a 1954 post-apocalyptic horror novel by American writer Richard Matheson. Set in a post-apocalyptic 1976 Los Angeles, the novel details the life of Robert Neville in the months and eventually years after the outbreak of a pandemic that has killed the rest of the human population and turned infected survivors into vampires. And of course, this book inspired a bunch of other zombie-related media and pandemic media, and one of those adaptations was I Am Legend, the movie from 2007, starring good old Will Smith.
Yeah. Little side note, before we dive too deep into this discrepancy, or this deviation, did you see what they're making like a sequel to this?
That's relevant, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, they're using the alternate like DVD ending where he doesn't die at the end.
Right.
Which is interesting to say the least, because Will Smith has one of the craziest track records I've ever seen when it comes to film. I mean, well, I guess I Am Legend is a good movie, and then you have things like After Earth, and it's like, man,
right.
it's like, fuck, this dude, it could be anything. I have no expectations for him. Or like The Pursuit of Happiness, crazy movie. Wild Wild West, not so much.
Could go either way, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So in the novel, some of the vampires are revealed to be intelligent, and they are forming their own new society. And they are also against the feral vampires that exist in this world. And they view Neville as like a monster, because basically he is like a reclusive guy who just like mysteriously kidnaps and slaughters their people. It's an interesting take to have like the traditional monster characters, the vampires, be fearing the lone survivor human character.
That definitely is subversive, and also I would just say that it's kind of like it kind of frames at least the sort of like cognizant vampires as more of like victims of circumstance.
In the novel, it ends with him getting captured by the vampires, and he opts to commit suicide to avoid execution.
Which is similar, I guess, to the end. I mean, he dies in the movie, but that's not really the same context, I suppose.
Right. So the novel, it has themes of paranoia and isolation, and importantly, the fear of being left behind by society. Neville is like, a reclusive loner guy. He's the last of his kind, basically, and he's so afraid of the others or the vampires that he doesn't realize that they actually have common goals and that they're not so different. And basically he's just is sickened by the idea that these intelligent vampires could be anything like him, or that they are the new species. And that's an important theme that's totally left out of the movie.
Yeah. I don't think that there's any sort of, in the movie, I don't think there's any sort of like there's any sort of like bridging of a gap between him and the vampires. Like there's never even like, I don't remember there at least being any sort of like brief fleeting moment of understanding between them.
In the alternate ending there is, but not in the theatrical cut. You're right.
Okay.
So in the novel, in his last moments, Neville is amused by the thought that he will become their new superstition and legend, just as the vampires were to humans.
I Am Legend. Okay.
So yes, that's where
I now understand the title of the movie.
Right, and that's important because the title doesn't make sense in the movie adaptation.
Not really. No, I mean, I guess you could maybe force it to fit in another way.
And they do. He gets to commit suicide without facing justice, basically. So he'll forever be like a mystery to these vampiric people, and just like some guy who slaughtered their people, and so I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like in their eyes, he's mindlessly killing and torturing them.
Right. So in the film, we actually got two endings. Let's look at the alternative ending first, which is more similar to the novel and kind of slightly contains themes of the novel, but it's still pretty far off. So in the alternate ending, realizing that the Darkseekers are intelligent, Neville is spared after freeing his infected hostage. So he's captured one of these Darkseekers, and he's using it to experiment on and create a cure, and he thinks he's the savior. Not realizing that the Darkseekers, they have their own society, and like they care for one another. So when one goes missing, they're not feral creatures. They notice that like a member of their society is gone. It's actually like the main antagonist, like the alpha male's girlfriend, basically, who he kidnaps.
Wow.
So there's a scene where the alpha male breaks into his lab and he draws a butterfly on some glass, which shows Neville that he is intelligent because this Darkseeker has a butterfly tattoo on her neck or something. And in that moment, he realizes, like, oh my god, like, I've stolen somebody from these people.
He said, oh my god, I kidnapped kidnapped somebody. Yeah.
And suddenly he's like, I'm the bad guy. So yeah, this does kind of play into that same theme of the novel, because he has that moment of realization. But test audiences didn't like it. This is a downer ending, and there's no big finale here. Basically, he says, okay, take her back. And they do, and he's like, sorry, bro. And then, they part ways, and it's kind of ambiguous.
That's like, I can understand why maybe general test audiences would be like, no, there's no big ending. There's no finality to it. But I feel like I Am Legend is kind of something, like, thematically at least, isn't something that you necessarily have to bring this conclusive and, like, concrete finality to. I mean, leaving it open-ended with, like, him realizing that the vampires are not only sentient but also intelligent, and in that way humanizing them in his eyes, like, it kind of like, it's like, oh, you could infer as to what would happen next. But I could maybe see why they would prefer him to fucking blow himself up.
Right, and keep in mind, this is like a big budget Will Smith movie. I feel like people see Will Smith and they expect him to be the action hero.
Dude, I know. I saw Pursuit of Happiness. I'm bringing it up again.
Well, he's versatile, but still, I think of like Independence Day or something.
Yeah, Pursuit of Happiness would have been a much better movie if at the end he pulls the grenade and jumps into like a crowd of vampires.
Absolutely,
cool, dude.
So let's talk about the theatrical ending. And this is the one that most people have seen. So
yes.
Neville sacrifices himself to protect his fellow survivors in a heroic last stand, with no acknowledgement of the infected's intelligence. So basically, the entire time, the Dark Seekers are just monsters, and he makes a heroic last stand and blows a bunch of them up along with himself, and they don't even touch on they're intelligent or they're human, or that theme of, we are not so different, you and I.
Yeah. Effectively killing one of the most important themes and narrative
absolutely
points of the original novel.
They basically adapted this story, but they just took out all of the important themes of it.
That's what it sounds like to me.
And made it a generic, like, zombie survival, one-man survivor kind of movie.
From like a marketing and sort of like appeal standpoint, I can maybe understand why they did it. Like World War Z, like, changed a significant amount of the book as well.
Oh yeah.
Because Brad Pitt action hero, but I don't know. It feels weird to like. And listen, I have no stake in this. I'm not like a big I Am Legend book defender. I've never read it. I have no emotional connection to it. But it does kind of feel a little silly to take the name of the book and kind of follow it, but also kill like one of the most important themes of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, and this isn't like a new thing. Let's take the loose plot of a pre-existing IP, pre-existing piece of media, and we kind of loosely follow it to make our own thing. Like, that's not new, but I mean, I feel like it would have been easy to make your movie the exact same, and then at the very end, like, kind of like honor the themes of the book to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, even with the alternative ending, like, this movie is still very, very different from the novel. Like, there are whole characters and plot points and things that are just totally absent.
And to be fair, the movie's good.
Yeah, it's a fine movie. Like, you don't necessarily need to have these themes carry over from the novel, but if you're gonna make an I Am Legend movie,
I think it'd be a better movie for it.
Yeah. I mean, when I read the synopsis of this book and I saw the whole thing about the vampires have their own society now, and they fear Neville as like some kind of mysterious killer who's been, haunting them and murdering their people. Like, I thought that was cool. And then him realizing that, like, he's been outgrown, basically. Like, humanity has evolved. Like, these things are not monsters. They are the next evolution of humanity. And he's been outgrown. And humans are no longer relevant. So he chooses to kill himself. I think that's a really cool theme.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can go in circles with it, but I guess I do think that it is kind of odd that because honestly, the movie would have been better for it. Like, I think that you would have been able to leave the movie with a lot more should it have, like, gone down in a more similar fashion that the book did. Maybe the second movie, they're like, damn, vampires are intelligent. Maybe they can expand upon it.
This isn't the first time that I Am Legend has been adapted.
Oh, really?
Maybe previous adaptations were more similar, and this movie wanted to kind of stand out and just take loosely more themes from the book, which that alternate ending did kind of accomplish. So this theatrical ending that most people have seen is now non-canonical because of the upcoming sequel.
Which is so funny, because not a large amount of people have seen the alternate ending. So imagine, like, going to like, oh, I Am Legend 2, wonder how they'll expand upon that, and the first scene is just like Will Smith. It's like,
or they see Will Smith and they think, oh, Will Smith saying it's going to be a prequel. Wait, why is he older?
Oh yeah, what's going on here? I distinctly remember him blowing himself up with a grenade.
I imagine the first scene of the sequel is going to be just the alternative ending or some kind of recap.
If it's not, then
that'd be very confusing. Yeah.
I think it would be not great for audiences.
And then the theatrical ending ends with this weird ham-fisted quote where the remaining survivor is narrating, and she says something along the lines of, Neville sacrificed himself for this cure, and now we have it. We are his legend.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever... What? We are his legend.
They had to somehow make the title relevant, even though this story just deviates so much from the original to where you can't even make it fit.
Okay, here's my train of thought, and maybe it'll resonate with somebody. So when I was younger, and even actually just recently, my train of thought was, and this is just purely speculation. I had no idea. I never looked into it. But my idea was the movie is called I Am Legend because to some extent, you know, he's like the lone survivor of like this city. It's been overrun by vampires. His family's dead. Everyone's gone. Like, he's the only person living here to his knowledge. And so my sort of like thought process was like, oh, I am legend. Like, I am like
the last of my kind.
Yeah, I am the last of my kind. I am like this legend of humanity in a way.
Right.
It's kind of like loosely how I always understood it to be. Now I know that's not true.
Yeah, they pretty much they dispel that right in the movie. His cure and the people that he saved are his legend.
That quote sucks.
Yeah.
We are his...
Just call it something else at that point.
That literally is like... That just doesn't sound good. It comes out of the mouth odd.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't roll off the tongue, and it's that's funny. That's really good.
All right, let's touch on a very, very hot topic. Avatar, The Last Airbender. The Netflix series, which literally just came out today.
Yes.
That being said, unless Mel took today off of work, I don't know, he's probably not seeing it.
I have not, but I have I've heard things. You know, I'm tapped in. I'm informed.
So we could sit here all day and say, this is different from this, and we're not even going to touch on the frickin' M. Night Shyamalan movie, okay?
Yeah, listen, I have no interest in beating that dead of a horse that hard.
Right.
But I will happily jump on something topical, so.
So we're going to focus on a specific element from the adaptation, and this is Sokka's sexism. So, Avatar the Last Airbender is an American animated fantasy action television series created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. It aired on Nickelodeon for 3 seasons from 2005 to 2008. Very beloved series. You know, very mature themes for a kid's show.
Widely appreciated.
Yeah, it's basically like universally praised.
Yeah.
And for good reason. So I'm going to synopsize it now. And rather than write a synopsis or anything, I'm just going to read the opening.
Oh, wow.
Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished.
Title card.
The series follows the adventures of the Avatar, Aang, and his friends, brother and sister, Katara and Sokka. So I looked into Sokka's Wikipedia page, because that's where I get 90% of my research. And there's a couple traits listed here of his early character. Skeptical, abrasive, sexist, and immature. So the Avatar show had this wild and crazy idea where you have characters that are flawed.
Yes.
And then as the show goes on, they grow and learn and mature and become better people.
Insane. Crazy thing to do. I'm honestly a little disgusted. Honestly, it's kind of fucked. I don't see. Here's the thing. In my opinion, and listen, I don't know what you're going to say next. I've heard nothing about this, but if I was making an Avatar the Last Airbender live action adaptation, I would say, you know what? Let's take Sokka and his chauvinistic, misogynistic tendencies and just get rid of him.
Right, they're problematic.
Being misogynistic is cringe and problematic, and therefore he shouldn't be any of those things, and he should experience no growth at all. That is what I would do.
Right. And that's why Netflix hired you.
Yeah. I'm actually a showrunner. I'm for Avatar: The Last Airbender. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm excited to hear your all's critical reception. Please be nice.
Personally, I like watching shows where the characters are already perfect and have no flaws.
Yeah.
Because that's just a really nice and friendly representation.
Yeah, I don't like my media to have any risks. Like I want it to be just. I want to turn my brain off and just be spoon-fed of pre-existing opinions like I already had.
So, from Variety.com, Netflix's live-action Avatar series took out how sexist Sokka was in the original. Quote, a lot of moments in the animated show were iffy. So, when this article came out, a lot of Avatar fans were very upset that they're removing character arcs and traits from characters just because they might be perceived as problematic.
Yes, I saw a lot. I saw a lot of posts about this. So naturally, I've already got my opinion from somebody else. I'm very ready to talk about this.
Of course, neither of us have seen the show, and we're ready to give our expert opinions.
Yeah, I'm super excited to just parrot a couple tweets that I saw earlier today about the topic.
So Sokka's actor spoke out. He says, obviously, we took out that sexist element, but he still has that attitude. Not a sexist attitude, but it's morphed into more of, in Sokka and Katara's relationship, I'm the leader and you're the follower situation. Stuff like that. He's still the Sokka we know and love from the cartoon. I don't even think fans would notice some of those things, honestly, when watching our show. He definitely still has his arcs and his lessons in the show.
Here's, I guess, my number one sort of like grievance with this. One, they announced that that his character was less sexist before the show even came out, right?
I mean, this is an excerpt from an interview. It's not like they made a big deal about it, I think.
Well, but he brings it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm reading it through text here. I don't I don't know the tone of voice in which he said it. But this sort of like obviously we took out the sexist element. It kind of feels like a bit of a brag in a way, like this, like kind of saying, obviously we took out this thing that the original show fucked up and got wrong. And I think that obviously, the use of the word obviously carries a lot of weight, because it's like saying like, yeah, this thing was wrong and we fixed it. Which
maybe he doesn't feel that way. Like, he didn't write the show, he just is an actor.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't want to put words in his mouth. But in terms of like the writers of the show and stuff like that, it's just odd to me, because I feel like it's being framed in a way that it's like, it's good we took this out because misogyny is bad, right? But as everyone kind of seems to generally agree upon, that's dumb. It's like a big part of like Sokka, because Sokka is like kind of like he's like the man, right? And he had to be an adult from a very young age. So him being thrust into a position of maybe not necessarily authority, but of responsibility at a young age, forces him to grow up rather fast, and as a result, he's kind of emotionally stunted. He's immature, and as a result, he's developed or underdeveloped views on women, especially where this sort of like gender role of being the man of the tribe comes into play for him, and so. Over time, him kind of like understanding, altering, and kind of repairing his skewed perception of women is like really important. It's like that's like that it kind of helps him understand, like the dynamic of these things. And by taking it out, it's like, sure, you can still give him an attitude, but it's an attitude that kind of feels aimless or without cause.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said with I Am Legend, I think that's just kind of silly. I think it's a silly thing to do. And I feel like, man, people had a lot of hope for this show, and it's fallen apart really quickly.
It may still be good, even without Sokka's sexism.
Yeah, I don't know. When I heard that the original creators were on board and then left, I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. But we have to just consider Sokka was born in a patriarchal society. He doesn't have the internet. He doesn't have any means of, leaving his tribe.
That's true.
Like, when you just exist in an insular bubble, you have whatever notion is fed to you, in a way. Like, you don't really have the capability to just come up with this idea that, maybe women and men can be equal. If you're young and you've been told your whole life that that's not the case. This show is about them leaving their little bubble and seeing the world and experiencing different things. And this conflict comes in when they go meet the Kyoshi warriors, which are all women. And he scoffs at the idea of that, women can't be soldiers. And they end up kicking his ass, and like humbling him. And he comes around, and at the end, he apologizes and says, like, I was way off. Like, I had no idea that women could be soldiers in this way. His character grows. He starts flawed, and as time goes on, he matures. I mean, fucking Zuko is like a bad guy early in the show, and he ends up, turning and maturing in and this is like a TV show made for kids, and they understand that kids can see flawed characters, and they can grow and mature and change and become better people. But for some reason, Netflix thinks, let's not have any of that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of, not to divert too far, but I think that specific facet of the situation kind of points towards a bigger issue that I see, like a lot of especially like streaming services shows go in the direction then, where a lot of the time the plot and how the characters interact kind of feels a little patronizing to the viewer, like it's spoon feeding the viewer information, or being very blatant, not so subtle about it. And like the viewer isn't fucking stupid, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like Netflix is essentially trying to circumvent the need to, and the original narrative, isn't super subtle either. He keeps being ignorant and an asshole towards these women, and the women keep kicking his ass. That's very on the nose.
Right.
But I think that Netflix a lot of the time sort of tries to circumvent the whole journey part and just wants to get to the point. And so in this case, they're just like, Sokka is actually not sexist at all because sexism's bad.
Right, but you can still say sexism is bad and still have it as a character trait of one of your characters. Right, if you want people to think that sexism is bad, you can't just pretend it doesn't exist. You have to demonstrate why it's wrong.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that using a child is a really good way to get that across, because Sokka's misogyny is it's not born out of hate. It's born out of ignorance. He just doesn't know. He's immature, and I think that's a really good way to frame it, especially for a children's show.
Right.
Because like it's never framed in a way that's like it's framed in a very accessible, easy to understand, yet not patronizing way. And I respect that a lot about the original show for being able to get a lot of more mature themes across in that manner.
Mm-hmm. When I first saw this headline, first I just thought, well, it's kind of stupid. Whatever. Why would they do that? But then I thought, well, this could be okay, but they have to give him a new, like, character flaw to overcome. Like, if he's not going to be sexist anymore, then he needs something else in that place.
Yeah, like, give him something to grow upon.
Like, sure, fine, you want to remove his sexism? Probably not the best idea, but give him something else. Some other ignorant trait that he has that he has to overcome in the show.
Did you see the other plot point that was changed that people were pretty upset about?
What's that?
So, they kind of like the showrunners and the producers were like, in the original Avatar the Last Airbender, Aang, Katara, and Sokka, they spend a lot of time being kids and like not doing like the mission, not doing their big quest, and they take a lot of detours. And we thought that was silly. So we actually got rid of all of those little fun side detours as slice of life stuff, and we're just straight up action heavy plot every single episode, because the original show, too much fluff.
You mean there's no like, beach episode?
Yeah, right. There's not a single beach episode. No beach OVA. But the big issue is that Aang doesn't really want to be like the Avatar and have that big responsibility. So him, Katara, and Sokka like going to all these places and having fun and taking detours and stuff is they're kids. But it's a part of like Aang coming to terms and coping with the responsibility that he has as the Avatar.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a crucial part of his character.
I mean, imagine Aang comes out of the ice, geared up, ready to go, full power, point me towards the Fire Nation, and just like
I already mastered all 4 elements.
Yeah, what fucking story? What kind of story is that, man?
Right. Also, have I been saying Sokka's name wrong this whole time?
I'm pretty sure it's Sokka. I don't know. I'm like 80% sure it's Sokka.
Because granted, I haven't seen the show in years.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I was just going off of memory.
Well, I mean, honestly, you keep saying it the way you've been saying it. I keep saying it the way I've been saying it. And at least we'll be half right for the episode.
Okay. That's a pretty good track record.
Yeah, right?
Let's take a look at Super Mario Bros. But not the recent movie, the 1993 movie.
Oh, yeah, let's.
Super Mario Bros. Is a 1993 fantasy adventure film based on Nintendo's Super Mario video game series. The first feature-length live-action film based on a video game.
This was the first, huh?
This was the first, and it set a very bad impression. But it was directed by husband and wife team Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, which must have been a fucking nightmare.
Man, dude, that's a crazy precedent to set.
Yeah, and especially you get Nintendo's blessing on this. Like, there's a reason they went for 20 years or whatever without ever licensing their shit out again.
They had one movie and they're like, fuck, man, like, we can never let this shit happen again.
Let's compare the synopses of these two movies.
Okay.
To see exactly what went wrong. So, in the game, following the events of Mario Bros., the game is set in the fantasy land of the Mushroom Kingdom after Mario and Luigi had arrived through a clay pipe from New York City. In the Mushroom Kingdom, a tribe of turtle-like Koopa Troopas invade the kingdom and uses the magic of their king Bowser to turn the mushroom people into inanimate objects like bricks, stones, and horsehair plants. Bowser and his army also kidnap Princess Toadstool of the Mushroom Kingdom, the only one with the ability to reverse Bowser's spell. After hearing the news, the brothers set out to save the princess and free the kingdom from Bowser. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah, not too hard to follow.
Magical land, mushroom people, evil dragon attacks, he kidnaps the princess, the heroes gotta do their thing, right?
Yeah, save the girl, save the day, stop the bad guy.
I mean, Super Mario is not exactly known for its dense plots, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't actually say it really has any plot.
Even just reading this, there's stuff in here that I had no idea just from actually playing the game. Like, this is denser than what is actually portrayed to the player while playing the game.
Yeah, I had no idea that Bowser had such a power to turn people into inanimate objects, such as bricks, stones, and horsehair plants.
Right.
It's news to me.
Now let's take a read of the synopsis of the movie. Following the impact of a meteorite into the Earth 65 million years ago, the universe is split into 2 parallel dimensions. Okay.
No,
I'm just going to stop there.
No way.
How did we get from Mushroom Kingdom to parallel dimensions?
Okay, meteorite hits Earth 65 million years ago. The universe, because of the meteorite hitting a single planet, the whole universe splits into 2 parallel dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
In one of those dimensions, the dinosaurs survive.
That's right, and they evolved into a humanoid race and found the city of Dino-Hatton.
Okay, so here's the thing. So the universe is split into parallel dimensions, and in one of these dimensions, the dinosaurs escape to and survive, and they evolve into a humanoid race. So, if they found the city of Dino-Hatton, which is an obvious parallel to the real-life city of Manhattan in New York, so are we to assume that, like, the evolutionary line is completely the same? They're just dinosaur humanoids rather than humans? Like, did they have a dino industrial revolution? Did they have a dino civil war with a dino Abraham Lincoln that was assassinated by dino John Wilkes Booth?
We have to assume so.
That's crazy to me, man. Because you know what? Props to them for also reaching the conclusion of, like, industry, capitalism, way to go.
So I'll just pick out a couple random plot points and we can compare them to what goes down in the game. In 1973, a large egg and rock are left at a Catholic orphanage, and the egg hatches into a human baby girl.
Cool. Okay, yeah.
20 years later, Luigi meets Daisy, an NYU archaeology student who shows him she has been excavating for dinosaur bones under the Brooklyn Bridge.
Under the Brooklyn Bridge?
Yes. Daisy learns she is descended from dinosaurs.
Oh,
and the long-lost princess of another dimension.
Okay. I'm getting all the W's. Who, what, when, where, why? I don't know. This doesn't make, like, I'm trying to connect the dots here, Carl. I really am. I'm trying to make this a logical narrative that I can follow.
I think if you saw the movie, it would all make sense.
Really? You think that all my questions will be cleared up if I watch the movie? Because I don't think so. I think that there would still be stones left unturned and questions left unanswered.
In this movie, Koopa, aka Bowser, his jealous girlfriend, Lena, tries unsuccessfully to murder Daisy.
Okay, cool.
And lastly...
question, when does Mario come in?
Right, well, this is not like a plot-by-plot thing. These are just all of the fucked up weird things that happen in this movie.
I understand.
Because I could be here all day just going through every strange thing that there's just no mention of in the games, that they just pulled out of their ass.
I guess that's what happened. What happens when? Because I'm sure that somewhere some executives were like, Mario's the biggest game in the world. Let's make a movie out of it. But didn't stop to consider that the original game has no fucking plot at all.
Right.
And here's the thing. Because the game has no plot, really you could take it in any direction and you wouldn't really be wrong, as long as you were like, yeah, Plumber, Mushroom Kingdom, Bowser. Princess.
There's no Mushroom Kingdom.
And they did none of those things.
There is no Bowser either.
They didn't do a single fucking thing.
Yeah. I wrote up a little closing statement here just because I felt strongly about this. So, using the bare bones story of the Super Mario Bros. Games, the 1993 film constructs a nonsensical sci-fi plot featuring mostly human characters with little resemblance to their in-game counterparts. The Super Mario series is best known for its fun gameplay, not its deep, engaging lore. This movie tried too hard to create a plot where there was none, and is ultimately a completely unnecessary attempt at capitalizing on the Super Mario brand.
Okay, here's the thing. That is very true. I agree with your closing statement, but let's rewind a bit. I don't want to close just yet.
No, we don't have to.
I have a closing statement of my own.
Please.
because I think you summed it up very well. It's entirely illegible, incoherent, nonsensical. But I think somewhere in your notes, I saw the phrase devolution gun.
That was the last point I pulled. Yeah, Mario and Luigi obtain a de-evolution gun, and they use it to defeat Koopa by devolving him into primeval slime.
Okay.
Just like in the game.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that's fucking crazy. That is an insane thing to just have. Secondarily, listen, I watched the Mario movie with Chris Pratt, right?
And it was good.
It was good. And you know, and you know what that movie didn't have? It kind of didn't really have a plot, man. Like,
yeah.
There's like, it's super low stakes the whole time. The voice acting is fun and over the top. The movie is visually very pretty, right? The movie looks very good. It's chock full of references to the games. It's very visually pleasing. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. Super bare bones, rushed plot. The pacing is crazy, but it's a kids movie, and that movie is like actually fun to watch for all of those reasons.
Right.
Man, this 1993. Listen, I've seen clips from it. No amount of whimsy. No whimsy in that shit.
Hoskins and Leguizamo, the actors for Mario and Luigi, they got drunk before each day of filming and continued to drink between takes. Not relevant to the plot, but I just thought it was a fun little factoid that they were just fucking drunk the whole time.
I would too. If I had to act any role, any amount of time in this movie, I'd get fucked up too.
But the new Super Mario Brothers movie,
fucking hitting Mai Tais and mimosas in between every line.
Right. The new Super Mario movie basically did everything right, whereas this movie did everything wrong. Like, it's a 3D animated movie rather than a live action movie. They take plot points from assorted games, and, you know, they don't emphasize the plot.
No, and it's all the better for it.
Right, and it's just a fast-paced, fun, visually appealing, like Princess gets captured by Bowser, they go on a jumping quest to save the day. It's like, that's what you know Mario for. Now, by the time the new movie was made, we had tons more Mario games to draw from, which I think is the only reason why they could even fabricate any kind of plot.
Yeah, they needed 20 years of games to, like...
I mean, because you have a lot more, like, fan service to draw from. Like, you can do some Mario Kart stuff, you can do some Smash Brothers stuff, you can do some Odyssey stuff.
Yeah. Listen, man, you take Mario and Luigi, hey, the brothers from Brooklyn, they're from New York. Uh-oh, they go down the pipe. Now they're in the Mushroom Kingdom, they get separated. Chris Pratt gotta save Charlie Day. Anya Taylor-Joy is Peach. She's kind of a badass. Jack Black is Bowser. He wants to marry Peach. Peach ain't gonna let that happen. Oh no, now Bowser's trying to take over. We gotta stop him. That's it. That's
right.
all.
They gave that movie like a super just basic plot and just let the adventure and the visuals kind of speak for themselves.
They kind of like hinted at like, they kind of like had like this sort of like quasi plot like for the characters, like, hey, Mario's from Brooklyn, he's got a failing business, he gets the respect of his family when he comes home. Peach wandered through the pipe as a baby, she was taken in by the Koopas. That's never once expanded upon, but like it's introduced, like the idea is there.
Right.
So there's a bunch of like half points that make you feel somewhat connected to the characters, but other than that, just visual roller coaster.
Right, it's not a character-driven, plot-driven movie. Because it's not based on anything where you could draw that kind of stuff from. And the mistake this live-action movie made was that they just tried to desperately make up some kind of semi-grounded sci-fi plot and, you know, just, like I said, pull things out of their ass to make a Mario Brothers movie.
It sucks.
Let's move on to The Shining from 1980. And here we're going to specifically focus on Jack's portrayal. So it's pretty infamous that Stephen King hates Stanley Kubrick's adaptation.
Yes, not a fan.
So we're going to touch on exactly why that is. So The Shining is a 1977 horror novel by American author Stephen King. It centers on Jack Torrance, a struggling writer and recovering alcoholic who accepts a position as the off-season caretaker of the historic Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies. His family accompanies him on this job, including his young son Danny, who possesses The Shining, an array of psychic abilities that allow the child to glimpse the hotel's horrific true nature. Soon after a winter storm leaves the family snowbound, the supernatural forces inhabiting the hotel influence Jack's sanity, leaving his wife and son in grave danger.
I'm kind of like familiar, like vaguely kind of familiar with like Stephen King's distaste of this movie. And I think the big one is he just like he sees himself in Jack. Jack is him.
Right. He's always self-inserting.
Yes, and Kubrick is much less forgiving to Jack's character.
Right.
And in a way that's like almost like a violation of Stephen King's own catharsis, because now it's not him.
And I think most people who have seen the movie think it's awesome. It's one of the best horror movies.
It's fucking great. I love that movie.
Most people don't care about, Jack's bastardized character because they have no point of reference. They don't care about these themes that are missing from the novel as much as Stephen King does. So King says, the movie has no heart. There's no center to the picture. I wrote the book as a tragedy, and if it was a tragedy, it was because all the people loved each other here. It seems there's no tragedy because there's nothing to be lost. Basically, Stephen King is upset because, well, first of all, he didn't want Jack Nicholson as Jack. Because he's played a lot of unhinged characters in the past.
See, man, and listen, if anybody understands the character of Jack Torrance, it's Stephen King. He invented him.
He basically is Jack Torrance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he invented the character. I don't get to tell him what is and what isn't an unhonorable adaptation of Jack Torrance. However, I love Jack Nicholson in that movie.
Right.
Sorry, King. I do.
And he is very good, but he just plays the character differently, according to this adaptation. Basically, Stephen King thinks Jack, in the book, he is like a genuinely good guy. And it's all about him being basically perverted to the dark side by this evil hotel that, he's unable to overcome that temptation and eventually falls victim to the dark urge and becomes the bad guy. And having somebody like Jack Nicholson, who we all expect to be the bad guy from, the first scene, we're like, oh, of course Jack Nicholson's going to go crazy and chase people around with a fire axe. No duh.
Like, I get it. I get why King is not happy with the adaptation. Like, I love The Shining. It's one of my favorite movies ever. But I can also understand from, like, the perspective of the person who wrote the original source material. Like, I could understand that he felt like his characters and his plot were bastardized, and how he felt that, things were changed for the worst. Like, I get it, because if I, wrote a book and somebody adapted it in a way that I did not feel was faithful, like, I'd be pretty pissed too. Like, that's my work. But also from a cinematic perspective, I understand why Kubrick made the changes he did. I think that the changes he made were much more fit for the context of a film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of hard to like I think maybe the big one, it's kind of hard to just portray Jack going crazy just as a result of just the force of the hotel.
I feel like they just don't have enough time to have a slow descent into madness.
I feel like the movie's already a pretty slow burn.
Somewhat, yeah. But I feel like if they had to start with a goody two-shoes guy and turn him into Jack Nicholson with an axe, it would be more difficult.
Yeah, he is kind of just a little unsettling to begin with. Like, he's kind of already on edge.
Like, he's already a fucking asshole, honestly. Yeah. And he doesn't seem to care about his family, which is what Stephen King's all mad about, because he says, this is a loving guy. He loves his family. But, Jack Nicholson he seems like a total dickhead the entire time.
See, here's the thing. I actually will. I will 100% agree with King with that. The stakes would have felt a lot higher if at any point in the film I was convinced that at one point Jack Torrance loved his wife and kid.
He doesn't seem like.
There's not a single point in that film where I'm like, that's a family man. He cares about the well-being and health of his wife and child. No, I'm never once convinced that he loves them.
He has a history of like, accidentally abusing his kid when he's drunk. And he's just like...
Not even that story. He just is so emotionally detached.
There's that whole scene where they're in the car and he's like, oh, don't worry, honey. He heard it on the TV. Like, I don't give a fuck what my kid is watching or listening to or what he's exposed to. Like, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He's your kid, bitch.
Yeah, he talks with that... yeah, he talks with that real matter-of-fact, like tongue-in-cheek matter-of-fact. Yeah, of course. Of course, that's the reason. Like it's like he's such a condescending prick from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It just gets worse. It just gets worse as the movie progresses.
So King felt that Nicholson's past roles as an unhinged character would eliminate a lot of suspense of the movie. The author complained that Nicholson's version of the character was observably crazy from the beginning, and he just gets worse as the film goes on.
Hey, that's what I just said.
Jack Torrance has no arc in that movie. In the novel, Jack's son Danny appeals to his father's good nature, allowing him to recover his sanity long enough for his family to escape the hotel before it explodes due to an overheating boiler. The movie instead ignores this in favor of Jack freezing to death while chasing his own son with a fire axe through a hedge maze. This ending of him coming back to his old self and, overcoming the evils of the hotel was meant to be a representation of King overcoming alcoholism. And he feels like since the movie just cut that entirely, like Jack died a villain in this movie, then he feels like there is no arc. And he is right to a point. Like if I wrote that character and he has a redemption arc, which is very personal to me, I understand why he would be like, they totally missed the point.
Because obviously, like, this novel, like, writing it, I'm sure was a very cathartic process for King because it's about his own struggles with addiction and overcoming them. So, like, I'd be fucking mad, too. I'd be like, hey, what the fuck?
Like, did you even read my book?
That's me up there. I'm not dying in the hedge maze.
At the same time, though, I gotta say, sometimes you just gotta let go. Like, you have your book, and not everything has to be totally accurate to that. Like, this was fair. Kubrick's vision, and he wanted to go a different direction with it.
And it was really good. It's a good movie.
A lot of people love it. But King's got a point. It kind of misses the point.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, here's our last one. This is the Hobbit trilogy. And we're going to focus on, well, the fact that it's a trilogy to begin with. So, The Hobbit, or There and Back Again, is a 1937 children's fantasy novel by English author J.R.R. Tolkien. The Hobbit is a series of 3 epic high fantasy adventure films directed by Peter Jackson. So just for some reference here, the book is about 300 pages long, and the average reader, reading at 250 words per minute, will spend about 5 hours and 20 minutes reading it.
Fair.
All 3 movies of the trilogy are 8 hours long. So, where did they get this extra content, or how did they stretch this short children's book into 3 movies, into 8 hours of content?
That's a good question.
Well, that's the problem with this adaptation. Somewhere along the line, they decided 1 movie's not enough. They were originally going to do 2 movies, and they decided 2 movies is not enough. And since Peter Jackson had previously directed the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was highly successful and highly profitable, they decided The Hobbit, this single children's book, needs to be 3 movies.
Listen, man, that's just money, baby.
That's just money. At the expense of art.
It's just classic jumping the gun, man. Like, oh, this one thing we did was so successful, so let's... I guess the general ethos essentially is let's keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. Then we
basically stopped working at the second movie.
Yeah, but you gotta squeeze out that little last bit. It's like rolling the toothpaste tube once you've exhausted its contents. You know,
that is a good analogy for this series. Yeah, it's like rolling that little bit of toothpaste out.
Exactly. And then you're done with it.
And then
But
you
gotta
make
roll
up
it
some
first.
extra toothpaste that totally doesn't serve the narrative.
Yeah, you cut open the toothpaste tube and you put
Some mayonnaise in there.
yeah, you put some mayo in it, and then you're like, look, it's got more toothpaste in it.
So the films add hours of unnecessary subplots, drawn out action scenes, and needless fan service. So they figured, yes, exactly, 3 movies are going to make more money. So can we make this single book into 3 movies? Because this is like the last bit of source material we have in the Lord of the Rings franchise to work with.
Yeah.
So we need to stretch this as far as we can go. So they added a bunch of shit. They made their action scenes just like overly long. And they put in a bunch of like returning characters and just like fan service stuff that wasn't in the original book. And it was just there to lengthen the movies and to just, of course, please the fans.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you might think is a win, right? So this kind of sounds good, doesn't it? Like they're making The Hobbit just more substance, right?
Yeah,
They're
we're getting
giving us
Lord of the
more of
Rings
what we
shit.
love. But unfortunately, well, the more that they added is just not good. And when you stretch a short story like this into 3 movies, the pacing and the narrative and everything just totally loses the plot.
No.
So I'll give
No
one
way.
specific example here.
Please do.
So let's look at Toriel. She is an original female wood elf character who serves as the captain of the Elven Guard of Thorandal's Woodland Realm. Sorry to all the Lord of the Rings fans out there. But basically, she's an original character made specifically for the trilogy.
Nice.
She's not a creation of Tolkien's, not in the book or anything like that. And basically they added her because, well, the Lord of the Rings is kind of a sausage fest, especially The Hobbit. So they figured, let's get a female character in here. A strong one, too. A warrior female character.
Yeah.
Who's a leader, and it's totally badass and kicks ass. Then they needed to do a little something else with her, maybe get some more mileage out of her. So they decided that she needs to have a romance love triangle plot.
Okay.
Yeah. Many Tolkien fans have expressed dissatisfaction with the character, stating her inclusion is just an attempt to appeal to more a female audience, and Toriel's love triangle with Keely and Legolas have been described as forced, cliché, and unconvincing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably always, and maybe it's just unfortunate that it happens to be the only woman in the movie, because I just looked it up, in the book, there's not a single woman in the entire book.
Right.
Which I'm not, like, gonna fucking criticize J.R.R. Tolkien for that, like, I don't, like, whatever. But I do find it unfortunate that it's, like, this original character, it's like, hey, guys, look at this new character, and everyone's like, boo, you fucking shoehorned her in there.
There's a right way to do this. Like
I mean, I agree. There's more tasteful ways to do it. And you know, I haven't seen it. I don't know. Maybe she's a good character, and people are just like, "Oh, boo, woman." I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not just that she's a woman. It's like that she has a stupid, irrelevant love triangle plot.
They should have made it a love triangle with 2 other women. Problem solved.
But the real problem is that The Hobbit doesn't need a love triangle subplot.
Well, apparently, when there's 3 movies.
Exactly, and that's the deeper problem. Is that The Hobbit doesn't need 3 movies.
That's the problem to begin with. When you make more than 1 movie off of 1 book, listen, you're gonna have to start throwing shit in there that wasn't in the original text, you know?
It's just compounding problem on top of problem. Like,
Yeah,
whoops,
dude,
we accidentally made our single story into a trilogy. Whoops, now we need to add in some totally unnecessary filler that the fans are gonna hate.
Yeah, you know what? It is interesting. There's only 1 Hobbit book and there's 3 Hobbit movies. Because when I was watching the 3rd Hobbit movie, about halfway through that scene where Toriel and Legolas go to Dave and Buster's, I was like, this seems a little out of place. I was like, I don't remember them going to Dave and Buster's in the book.
Well, they just added that in, you know?
Yeah,
it's filler.
Listen, I'm okay with a little bit of fan service, right? I'm okay.
That part where like Bilbo and all the dwarves, they all go to the beach. Like total filler.
Yeah, what the fuck was up with like the 22-minute beach section? That was odd, man.
I could have done without that.
Yeah, it was really weird when they all got together and they played a game of baseball. It was so fucking weird, man. Like I was sitting there, like I looked over at Kenzie and I was like, this wasn't in the book, right?
I don't
like
remember
they
this.
didn't all. Yeah, I mean, they didn't all get together and like play baseball right after their beach trip, right? I mean, that's not a thing that happened. Okay, it's not cool. Just making sure.
And on that note, this has been Adaptations that missed the point.
Fucking going back to the top.
I forgot the title. I was too focused on a bunch of dwarves going to the beach and playing baseball.
You were tapped the fuck in with that idea, weren't you, dude? Because I am. I'm like, I've never seen The Hobbit, but if they put that in it, maybe I would have by now.
We need a fourth Hobbit movie.
Yeah,
this is all filler.
Exactly. Listen, give me 10 more Hobbit movies. I think there's untapped potential in this franchise that hasn't yet been explored, and I think that maybe we could be the ones to do it.
Well, tune in for that on the next episode of The Long Couch on Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.